So today I'm going to winterize my 4.3 Mercruiser. I have other videos like a 3.0 Mercruiser, which is a little bit different than this. I'm going to leave a link at the end of this video or in the description. Go check that out. And I have a link for changing your lower end fluid, which I recommend doing in the fall, because if you have water in there, it could burst your lower end and destroy the motor. I'm going to use this 360 Marine Stable, use 1 ounce per 10 gallons. So this is the 20 gallon tank, 25 gallon tank. I'm going to add 3 ounces. It's not all the way full. Some say you need to fill up your gas tank so it has less condensation to go into the motor at the and during spring, so the condensation doesn't build up in there. I have a fuel water separator in here, so I'm going to run this tank out in the spring, and then I'll change the fuel water separator after that. I'm going to put it in a gas can at 3 ounces, shake it up, and then put it in the tank, because I'm not going to use this boat again, so it won't have a chance to mix up in the gas. That way it kind of stirs it up a little bit better. So again, basically 3 ounces. I'm just going to add 1 ounce in here to show you. That's 1 ounce. There you go. So like I said, I've already added a couple ounces in here. I'm going to fill this up, pour it in there, mix it up, pour it in. That way it stirs it all up. Okay, there we go. Now that I added my already mixed stable gas into the tank, and I add a little bit in the tank, I'm probably going to give the boat a couple of shakes. There. Now that I feel I have the stable all mixed up in the gas, I'm going to put the earmuffs on, lower the motor, and run the motor for at least 10 minutes. I have another video where I fog the motor. Like I said, I'll leave a link at the end of that, but I'm not going to fog the motor this year. Some say it's overkill. It doesn't hurt. The reason why you want to run your boat for 10 minutes probably after you put seafoam in the tank and shake your boat is because you want the seafoam to actually get in your fuel line. If you don't shake it or mix it up, it may just sit on the top and might not go all the way through the line. So you want the fuel with the seafoam to run all the way through the line and in through the carburetor. So that's why you're going to run it for 10 minutes. Now please leave a comment in this video if you do it a different way. I've been doing it this way for years. The marina that I go to said I could dump the coolant in the lines also. Some people, I have a bucket actually, but I prefer to just dump and direct inject the coolant right into the motor. So leave a comment in the description or in the comments down below and tell me what you think and the way you do it. Make sure this part goes all the way around all your ports for water to suck in. Then crank it all the way up. Drop your motor down, crank it up, start your motor. This boat has 139.3 hours when I'm winterizing it this year. So I just like to make sure that everything's kind of working. Everything is working. She's purring like a kitten. So I did a video specifically showing you where the blue drain plugs are on this motor. On my 3.0, there were brass plugs. I have a video for that specifically also. I'll try to leave some of these links in the description. But what you want to do after you run it is you pull the blue plugs. There's 5 on this 4.3. Drain the block and the manifolds. Then I'm going to put them back in, and I'm going to dump coolant inside the motor. Make sure it's coming out of the lower end. Make sure out of one of these hoses it's going to come out of like by the prop, because that's where, or out of the porch where the water sucks in. And basically, that way you know it went all the way in through the impeller and out. Now some people say, oh, you can't winterize your boat like that. I went to a marina that is right on Lake Minnetonka, and this said, this is how you can do it. Or I have a 5-gallon jug that I can put coolant in and run it through. But I prefer to do it this way. That way I'm not burning coolant, because right now, the motor's not even warm, and sometimes the thermostat might not even open up to get all the coolant in through the motor. Now I'm guaranteeing that I'm gonna get all the coolant into the bottom of the motor. That's the goal of this. So use a -75 temperature, depending on where you live, I guess. It got -55 here over winter last year in 2018 for the polar vortex. So I'm gonna make sure I take, you know, the extra $1 on the coolant to get the best stuff that there is. I always like to go with the lowest rating coolant I can find, because if you don't get all the water out, it dissolves it and it kind of drops the rating on this. I live in Minnesota, it's been known to get negative 55 degrees. So I like to go above the negative 50 degree coolant. What else I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take all the life jackets out. I'm gonna put them in my basement or storage locker. I'm even gonna take these seat cushions that I can remove off and put them in the storage locker also. I want every compartment in here open so it breathes. And then you're gonna wanna make sure all the water out of every compartment in here is out. So drain the boat properly, vacuum out any live wells, any areas that the water can get stuck in. Make sure it's completely dry and pull everything out of here. Just get it empty. It's best, that way things don't mold, because there will be moisture in here whether you like it or not. So just do your best. Try to maintain your boat properly and it'll stay nice. I'm throwing my life jackets, all my daughter's toys, I'm getting them out of the boat because, you know, life jackets can be 50 bucks. You don't want them to mold. So I'm completely clearing the boat out. Okay, now the hour clocker says 1:39.6. I'm gonna shut it off. It's been running for about 20 minutes. Then I'm gonna go back and shut my water off. I did a visual inspection of kind of everything in here as it was running to make sure there was no leaks, and everything was running great. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do after I ran it for 20 minutes, make sure the seafoam gets in the tank, is I'm gonna undo the blue drain plugs on the manifold and the block. You can't really see down in here, so I have another video, I'll leave in the description, that shows mainly with the bench out where these plugs are. They're very easy to see when I had this bench out. So I'm gonna drain the water out of the block and I'll show you the next step. Okay, it's kind of hard to see, but I took those plugs out. I took these two plugs out on the right side here, and the water instantly started draining out of the block way down there. I don't know if you can see that. You can barely see it. I'll kind of zoom in. So one basically right down here. It's right here. So you're gonna pull this one there. So after I remove all 5 of these plugs, I let the water drain completely out. In my 3.0, there were brass plugs, and there's only 2 of them. So there's 2 under the manifold. There's one on the front of the motor on this one, and there's 2 on the side of the blocks below the manifold. I'm gonna put these back in, just kind of hand snug, and then I'm gonna dump the coolant in the motor, and then I'm gonna drain them again and make sure pink comes out of everything. So I'm gonna surge the motor, not down the oil compartment obviously, with pink coolant. So after I got the water completely drained out, I'm gonna undo this hose and this hose. This hose right here comes in from the back of the motor from the impeller. So, and just kind of break those loose. So I'm gonna, fill that up with coolant. Okay, there we go. So what I'm doing is I'm making sure pink comes out of these holes right here. You can't really see that. Let's try this. The pink is coming out. That means you got it all the way through the motor. This one goes into the block. This one goes out the lower end. I just went to the back of the boat and inspected to make sure that there's coolant dripping out of the lower end. There is. As you can see, I have pink coolant coming out, which is a great thing. That's what you want. That way your impeller port is completely full of coolant and it has no more water in it. I'm just gonna keep adding it because if there's any water in there, I want it to be diluted. So I'm gonna put this hose on. Basically, you're just tightening this down. You could use an 8mm probably. A standard screwdriver is easy enough. Here we go. Now these hoses, like I said, go down to the manifold. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a towel in here and make sure. You don't probably have to do this. That way it won't come out of here, and I guarantee the coolant's gonna go in through here. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna drain the manifold again and make sure that everything got filled up properly. Completely pink. Try the block now. As you can see, plenty of pink coming out down there. Okay, let's see if you can see this. Pink draining out of there. Pink draining out of there. That means you know for sure your block is full of coolant. So like I said, there's 5 drain plugs on this block. I made another video specifically just showing you where these are without my back bench so you can easily see where they go. So I'm gonna put them back in, and I'm gonna do it one more time just for safekeeping. Okay, I'm gonna put this clamp back on here. Okay. Again, pretty much the only tool you even need is a standard screwdriver or an 8mm, and I used a needle nose basically to help loosen one of those blue drain plugs. So now for the second time, I take out the drain plugs and I let the coolant drain out again for a second time. Make sure it's extremely pink. I used 4 gallons of coolant for this. I could have got away with 3, but I wanted to make sure and pour more than I needed down. And that's all right. So I feel good about it now. This boat is winterized, ready for winter. Okay, all of this is not hard. It's just super humid out today, so I'm sweating my butt off, and it's harder just to try to get the camera angles. So after I took everything out of the boat, I'm gonna make sure I put the trim up to the right spot, make sure everything electronically is where I need it to be. Then I'm gonna take out the battery and bring it in my basement and set it on a piece of wood. And then the last thing I'm gonna do is dump a little bit of lower end fluid out and make sure if it's milky, I'm gonna drain the whole thing and change it. If it's oily and great gear oil, I just did a gear oil change in this about 10 hours ago. I'm gonna leave it, I'm just gonna put the plug right back in. So I have a video link for lower end, changing your lower end fluid. Very simple to follow, it's very easy. All this stuff is really easy to do as long as you take the time and find out where these blue plugs are. Like I said, I'm gonna have a video link at the end just for that. Okay, as far as the height of lower end, how I store it up so no mice can jump in the propeller, and I don't store it too high so it puts pressure on the bellows boot so it can like crack. So it's up about 3/4 of the way, and that's how I store it every year. But I'm gonna put a plastic bag over the prop here, that way no water can get in there. I mean, it does drain through, but if you get snow in there and then it gets wet and ice, I mean, maybe it can do some damage down there. It doesn't hurt just to put a plastic bag over it, and that's how I do it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna check the lower end fluid to make sure it's not milky. I did a lower end oil change about 10 hours ago on it. I have a video for the full video on that. Okay, as you can see, it was not milky, so I'm just gonna leave the lower end fluid in. You know, make sure you get a proper cover, maybe a tarp, and build it so snow won't collapse it. And that's how you maintain a boat. You wanna make sure these investments stay nice. And then I'm gonna put the wheels on bricks so it doesn't get frozen into the ground, because I'm gonna store this boat outside. I'm gonna make sure I have 2 tarps over it, and the snow is gonna fall off of it rather than sink the tarp. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, like I said, I have videos for the lower end fluid, where the drain plugs are, the starter, a bunch of videos. Just go down the list. It's basically mostly boat maintenance. Thank you very much.